Okay, so today we're diving into something, I don't know about you, but it never really crossed my mind as a business idea. But after seeing some of the numbers and the trends, well, maybe it should have. We're talking about starting a duct cleaning business.
Yeah, with all this increasing focus on healthy indoor air these days, it's actually not that surprising that this is becoming well, a pretty hot opportunity.
Right. And for our deep dive today, we've got some excerpts from this really interesting guide. It's called How to Start a Duct Cleaning Business. It's by SBK.
Yeah, and this guide, I mean, it really does lay out the whole process. If you're thinking about starting this kind of business, it's a great place to start. It covers everything from the initial investment all the way to like day-to-day operations, how to actually run the business.
Right. So we're going to be pulling out the key takeaways, the real nuggets of wisdom from this guide, and trying to give you a good sense of what it really takes to, to get this kind of venture off the ground. So,
Yeah.
um, I guess the first question for anyone who's never really thought about this before is like, what exactly is involved in duct cleaning? I mean, is it more than just like vacuuming out the
Oh,
vents?
it's way more than that. This guide makes it very clear that we're talking about cleaning the entire system that air travels through in your heating and cooling system. So, yeah, you've got the main supply and return air ducts, those big ones, but also all the registers in each room.
Oh, okay.
And even more importantly, you have to get into the heat exchangers and the coils that are, kind of deep inside the central HVAC unit itself.
So it's like a really deep clean of the entire airflow system, I guess.
Yeah.
And the benefit is, I mean, obviously you're getting rid of dust, but there's more to it than that, right?
Right. I mean, think about it. You're improving the air quality in the entire building. That's huge, especially if you have allergies or any kind of respiratory problems.
Makes sense.
But also, when those ducts are clean, your heating and cooling system actually works better. It doesn't have to work as hard to push air through all that dust and gunk, which means lower energy bills. And it could even, extend the life of your HVAC system.
Right. That makes sense. Now, when it comes to actually starting this as a business,
Yeah.
I mean, you probably need some pretty specialized equipment, right? It's not just like a shop vac and a duster.
Exactly. The guide, it actually gives a pretty detailed breakdown of the equipment you'll need. And yeah, it's specialized, so it costs money. The biggest expense is probably the high-powered vacuum system. This is like
Yeah.
the heart of your business. You need a good one. You can't skimp on this because it affects everything. How fast you can work, how well you can clean.
Makes sense.
And those, they can run anywhere from $3,000 to $8,000.
Wow. So we're already talking, a pretty significant investment right off the bat.
Right, right. And then you'll also need a negative air machine.
A negative air machine. What does that do?
So that's what pulls all the dust and stuff out of the ducts, as you're cleaning it. Make sure it doesn't just blow back into the house. It's kind of like a giant, super powerful vacuum cleaner. Those run about $1,500 to $4,000.
Okay, so we're already, over $10,000 in just those two pieces of equipment.
Hmm.
What else is there?
Well, you'll need a rotary brush system.
A rotary brush.
Yeah, it's basically like a motorized brush that scrubs the inside of the ducts, gets all the gunk off. Those can cost anywhere from $500 to $2,000. Then there's the air compressor. You'll need that for powering different tools like air whips.
Air whips.
Yeah, yeah, they're flexible hoses that you use to loosen the dust in those hard to reach spots. The compressor itself, maybe $200 to $1,000. Air whips, $100 to $500, and then of course you'll want a good HEPA filtered vacuum for those really tiny particles. Another $200 to $1,000.
Okay, so we're talking about a lot of different pieces of equipment here. This is getting expensive.
Right, right. And you also want to be able to see inside the ducts, right? Both for cleaning and for showing the customer what you've done.
Yeah, I imagine that would be pretty important.
Right. So you'll need an inspection camera. That's another $500 to $2,000.
Oh. Okay, so what about safety equipment? That seems pretty important for this kind of work.
Oh, definitely. You'll need gloves, masks, respirators, goggles, maybe even coveralls, all that stuff. Figure $100 to $300 per person.
Okay.
And then you'll need ladders and maybe even scaffolding to reach those high ducts. That's another $100 to $500 depending on what you need.
Okay, so it's not just the cleaning equipment; it's all the supporting stuff too. What about the actual cleaning products?
Right. So you'll need biocides and sanitizers. Those are, special cleaning agents that are safe for ductwork. $50 to $200 for those. And then you'll need microfiber cloths and brushes. Another $50 to $150.
So we're talking about a lot of ongoing expenses too.
Right, right. And then there's the stuff you might not think about right away, like portable work lights.
Yeah.
$50 to $200. And if you're going to offer duct sealing, which a lot of businesses do, you'll need equipment for that. 200 to 1,000.
Okay.
And of course, you'll need a vehicle to transport all this stuff. That's a big one, 10,000 to 30,000 depending on what you get.
So you're basically driving around a mobile workshop?
Pretty much, yeah. And then you have to factor in the costs of, running the business itself. Things like a management system, software for scheduling, billing, that kind of stuff. 500 to 2,000. Marketing materials, business cards, website, another 500 to 2,000.
Right, right. And I'm assuming there are always some miscellaneous expenses too?
Oh, yeah. Toolbox, basic hand tools, duct tape, sealants, all that. Figure another $100 to $300.
So when you add it all up, what's the total investment someone's looking at to start this kind of business?
Well, the guide says, the low end is about 17,500. The high end closer to 57,000.
Wow. Okay, so that's a pretty big range.
Yeah, it all depends on the quality of the equipment you choose, whether you buy new or used, that kind of thing. But, one thing they really stress is that you should invest in good quality equipment from the start. It'll save you money in the long run.
Makes sense. Now, once you have a sense of the costs, what's next?
Market research. You have to know if there's actually a demand for your services in your area. You don't want to invest all this money and then find out that nobody needs their ducts cleaned.
Right. So you have to analyze the market?
Yeah, you have to figure out who your customers are, who your competitors are, what they're charging, what services they offer. Is there a need for this in your area?
So you're basically doing your homework before you jump in.
Exactly. And the guide, it also talks about the overall market outlook for the air duct industry, which is actually pretty interesting.
Okay. What did they say?
Well, according to Fortune Business Insights, the global air duct market was valued at like $8.6 billion in 2020, and they're predicting it'll reach $12.16 billion by 2028.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a pretty healthy growth rate, like 4.5% annually.
So why is that? Why is this market growing so much?
Well, it's partly because of the increasing use of, smart HVAC systems. And also, just as more and more buildings are being constructed, there's a need for more ductwork, which means more cleaning.
Right. And I guess that's good news for duct cleaning businesses.
Right, exactly. I mean, more ductwork means more cleaning. It's pretty simple. And they even cited data from Google Trends showing that, searches for air duct cleaning are going up. So there's definitely a demand.
That's encouraging. Now, it seems like having the right equipment is only part of the equation. You also need to know how to use it, right? The guide talks about the importance of training and certifications.
Right, right. I mean, you want to be able to assure your customers that you know what you're doing, that you're not going to damage their ductwork or their HVAC system.
Makes sense.
And getting professional training, maybe even a certification from NADCA, the National Air Duct Cleaners Association, that shows customers you're serious about your business.
Right. That's credibility.
Exactly. And the training, it'll cover things like how to use the equipment properly, safety procedures, how to identify potential problems.
So it's both practical and theoretical.
Right. I mean, you need to know how to do the job, but you also need to understand why you're doing it.
Okay, so once you have the skills and you've done your market research, what's next?
You need a business plan. That's like your roadmap. It lays out your goals, your target market, your services, your pricing, your marketing plan, everything.
Right, right. And even though it's a service business, you probably still need a physical location, right?
Well, you might not need a storefront, but you need somewhere to store your equipment, maybe meet with clients, do your paperwork.
Okay, so what should someone consider when choosing a location?
Well, you want to think about accessibility, both for you and your employees. Is it easy to get to? Is there enough parking? You also want to consider the demographics of the area. Is it a good fit for your target market?
Right. And then there are things like the cost of rent, zoning regulations, all that.
Exactly. And you also want to think about things like visibility if you do want a storefront and the potential for growth in the area.
Okay, so you've got your business plan, you found a location. What about when you actually start promoting services? What about contracts?
Right. You need a solid service agreement. That protects both you and the customer. It should clearly state what services you're providing, the price, the payment terms, any warranties, your liability, all that stuff.
Okay, so it's basically a detailed outline of the agreement between you and the customer.
Exactly. It prevents misunderstandings and disputes.
Makes sense. Now, what about making it all official? What about registering the business and getting licenses?
Right. So first you have to decide on a business structure, sole proprietorship, LLC, that kind of thing. Then you have to register your business with the government, federal, state, and local.
Right, right.
And then you need to get the necessary licenses and permits. Those vary depending on where you are and what kind of services you're
So
offering.
it's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Right. But generally, you'll need a general business license and maybe a contractor's license. And you might also want to consider getting certified by NADCA, even though it's not always required.
Okay. And once you're registered and licensed, what about taxes?
Right. So you'll need to register for a tax ID number, an EIN, even if you don't have employees. And you'll need to figure out your tax obligations, which depend on your business structure.
Right, right. And then there's the whole issue of quarterly estimated taxes.
Exactly. It can get complicated. The guide recommends talking to a tax professional to make sure you're doing everything right.
Makes sense. Now, what about insurance?
Right. You definitely need insurance. General liability insurance is essential. That protects you if someone gets hurt on the job or if you damage their property.
Right.
And if you have employees, you'll need workers' compensation insurance. And if you're using a vehicle for business, you'll need commercial auto insurance. And you might also want to consider insurance for your equipment.
So you need to protect yourself from all sides.
Exactly. Now, once you've got all that sorted out, you need to figure out how much to charge.
Right, the pricing.
Yeah. You need to consider your costs, the value you're providing, and what your competitors are charging. You might charge per event, per square foot, or offer flat rates. It's up to you.
So you need to find a balance between being competitive and making a profit.
Exactly. Now, remember, we talked about the overall investment. Well, the guide breaks down the startup costs a little more specifically. Equipment, $4,000 to $12,000. Vehicle, $20,000 to $40,000. Licenses and insurance, a few hundred to a few thousand. And then marketing and website, $2,000 to $5,000.
Okay.
But they also say that, if you're just starting out and focusing on residential services, you can probably get started for around $5,000.
So there's some flexibility there.
Right. You don't have to go all out right away.
Now, once you're all set up, how do you actually get customers?
Marketing, marketing, marketing. You need a good website that's optimized for local search. You need to be active on social media. You need to do some local SEO. Make sure people can find you when they search for duct cleaning near me.
Right, right. And what about more traditional marketing?
You can do flyers, local newspaper ads, even door-to-door marketing. And don't forget about word of mouth. Ask satisfied customers to leave reviews and tell their friends.
Right. Word of mouth is always valuable.
Yeah.
Now, once you actually get a job, how do you make sure those customers are happy and come back?
Quality service. You have to be professional, communicative, thorough. You have to offer customized solutions, educate the customer, follow up, get feedback. It's about the whole experience.
So it's more than just cleaning the ducts. It's about building a relationship with the customer.
Exactly. Now, the guide also has a really helpful FAQ section that addresses some common questions like, what licenses do I need? How do I get certified? How much does insurance cost? What are the trends in the industry?
Okay, so what are some of the key takeaways from those FAQs?
Well, they emphasize the importance of checking with your local and state authorities for specific licensing requirements. They recommend NADCA for training and certification. They talk about the different types of insurance you need. They give you an idea of the startup costs. They recommend creating a professional website and using social media.
Okay.
And they talk about the importance of staying up to date on industry trends, like eco-friendly cleaning methods and smart home technology.
So it's a pretty comprehensive overview.
Yeah, it covers a lot of ground.
So to wrap up our deep dive into starting a duct cleaning business, it's clear that this is a business that requires careful planning, a significant investment, the right licenses and certifications, and a dedication to providing excellent service.
Right. It's not something you just jump into.
But it's also a business with a lot of potential, especially with the growing focus on indoor air quality.
Absolutely. And it makes you think, what other opportunities are out there related to this trend?
That's a good question. Yeah. I mean, if people are increasingly concerned about the air they breathe indoors, what other services might they be looking for?
Right. Maybe things like air filtration systems or smart home environmental controls. There's a lot of potential there.
Definitely something to think about.
Absolutely. So if you're entrepreneurial minded and you're looking for a business with growth potential, the duct cleaning industry might be worth a closer look.
And if you're just a homeowner, well, maybe it's time to think about getting those ducts cleaned.
Yeah, you might be surprised what's lurking in there.
That's for sure. Okay, that's it for our deep dive into the duct cleaning business. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.